Well, it's Christmas Day again, so welcome to the Forbidden Planet.
Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. Happy Christmas Day. Merry Christmas on Christmas Day. From myself, Andrew Sumner, everyone at Forbidden Planet, and the one and only Dave Gibbons. How are you, Dave?
I'm good, thank you, Andrew. A very Merry Christmas to you and to all your viewers and to everybody on the Forbidden Planet.
Thank you so much, mate. It's once again great to have you back here on this, the most festive of days. How's your Christmas going?
Oh, it's good. You know, I suspect I've maybe already eaten too much. I haven't actually fallen asleep in front of the TV yet, although that inevitably happens. So, yes, it's another one of those Christmases.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Dave, that theme of falling asleep in front of the TV. And that makes me think of what people fall asleep in front of. And a British tradition, of course, when it comes to Christmas television is Doctor Who. Now, before I ask you about anything else about Doctor Who, there's one thing I've got to do, and that's don my annual Christmas attire. So here we go. Here's my Liverpool scarf, which is doubling for a festive scarf. There we go. There we go.
Absolutely. I think you tick all the boxes there, Andrew. It's the team, it's the day, and it's the character.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And there's my now well-worn Santa hat. Let's see what happens to this. Hang on. Has my head's got any bigger? Which it hasn't. There you
Look
go.
at that, it still fits.
It still fits. There you go. A bit around the side.
I feel a bit underdressed now. I've got my Christmas jumper on, look.
Yeah, and I saw that you'd done that, and I was highly appreciative as usual. In fact, I think, has that had a bit of an upgrade since last year? Or is it the same one, mate?
Certainly isn't the same one. It's a brand new gift this year. I don't wear the same jumper 2 years running, mate.
That's what I thought.
And I've got some truly hideous ones, but it all seemed to laugh at the time, you know.
Yeah. No, of course, you know. I like the fact that you give yourself an annual upgrade. I think that's very important.
If only it was more extensive, but it only runs to the jumper, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Well, Dave, Merry Christmas also to the Gibbons family. I hope they're all well.
Thank you very much.
And greetings from here at Sumner HQ, Forbidden Planet TV HQ. So, so Dave, Doctor Who, a big Christmas favourite, but we're surfing into the Doctor Who Christmas special later today on BBC One and on Disney Plus around the world with Ncuti Gatwa's full first episode as the Doctor. But of course, you were heavily involved in the 3 recent 14th Doctor specials in quite a beautiful way. So can you tell me about that, and then tell me about how it came about?
Well, many years ago, I used to draw Doctor Who. Was it the 5th Doctor? It was Tom Baker.
4th Doctor, yeah.
4th Doctor, sorry, yeah. And then I later did the 5th one. But yeah, the 4th Doctor. Tom Baker, in stories written by Pat Mills and John Wagner, and we had a lot of fun doing those. They actually used some plots that they pitched to the BBC and been unsuccessful with, and I, knowing that they had these stories already worked out, suggested to Marvel Comics UK that they get Pat and John to turn them into comic books. And it was Des Skin who was in charge of Marvel UK at the time, and he leapt at the idea because, you know, at one fell swoop he got the 2 best writers from 2000 AD and myself, in all modesty, one of the most popular artists, and he was thrilled, and I was thrilled because I'd never got a chance to work much with Pat and John before, so everybody was really happy. And although the stories are credited to John and Pat jointly, in fact they wrote them alternately. Pat wrote the first one, John the second, Pat the third, and John the fourth, and the Star Beast was the 3rd one. So that was written by Pat and drawn by me, about this character called the Meep, who comes from somewhere far across the galaxy, a very cute, lovable little alien who's being pursued by these horrible looking space police. And it's the story of what happens when this struggle comes to a typical northern British town. So it plays on lots of things. There's elements of horror in there. There's elements of humour. There's bits of kind of almost Grange Hill. There's a bit of Jasper Carrot humour. It was a real mishmash, but it was a story that I really enjoyed. And of course, what's happened to so many of us senior citizens of the comics world is a lot of people who now have positions of influence and power grew up reading our stuff. And apparently this story, The Star Beast, was a great favourite of Russell T Davies and also David Tennant as well. So they were absolutely gung-ho to make this one of their favourite stories into, to launch the new iterations of the Doctor. And Russell T Davies's office got in touch with us both and said they wanted to do this. They'd like us to be involved. They promised they'd do it the best they could and that they would pay us as well. So it may have been the last thing that made me think, hold on, this sounds a good idea. But they did treat us very, very well. And we both went, Pat Mills and I both went down to Wales where they were filming the adventure, and we got to see the sets, we got to meet the cast, spoke to David Tennant, and had a thoroughly great day out there watching it all come together on a huge scale. It was like the shoot of a big movie, not like the shoot of a TV program. And then they later asked us both to a premiere in London, which was a few weeks ago now, before it showed on the TV. Pat lives in Spain, so unfortunately he couldn't make it, but I went along with my wife and we saw it actually unfold in high def on the big screen, and we're absolutely thrilled by it. And it's had a fantastic reaction. And, it's a very important thing as well, being a comic book guy, and we often get a little bit trampled on, but the fact that they gave me and Pat a credit at the front of it rather than lost in the long list at the very end of it, I thought, was really classy of them. And of course, people have come out of the woodwork and said, hey, Dave, I saw your name on the TV. And so it's got me back in touch with some people. So in every way, it's been a really good experience. And I really enjoyed the episode as well. Not only was it great to see our work used, but I thought the way they'd used it and the way they integrated with it was absolutely brilliant. So that's the long story of how I was involved in the Star Beast.
I thought it was a particularly beautiful and satisfying outcome. As somebody who bought that issue of the Doctor Who comic back in the day and read that story and loved it as well, also being a person of a certain age, I had despite the fact that we do a lot of work at Titan with Doctor Who, we published the Global Doctor Who comic books for a start, I had somehow missed that opening episode was based on yours and Pat's work. And so when I saw the opening titles, I was very pleased and gratified to see that credit. And then what I was blown away by, and this must have been great for the two of you, is how much of your story they actually used, and how closely they used and replicated your designs for the characters.
Yeah, I mean, that was an experience that I've had before, but it was particularly sort of concentrated this time, that they tried many designs for the Meep, who's this sort of furry character. They tried all sorts of weird alien stuff, but just kept coming back to what I'd done. And it was exactly as I envisioned it, exactly the size that I'd drawn it, the same range of facial expressions, a wonderful, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but a wonderful wicked face as well, which was even more scary than I think what I'd done. And the same thing with the Roth Warriors as well. They tried various iterations of them, but I was very flattered that they said that they always came back to what I'd done. And I thought it was very skillful the way they did tell the whole story of the Meep as we'd done it. And they amped up the jeopardy, and they also made it relate to the ongoing storyline with the Doctor and the family on Earth and everything like that. So I thought it was a wonderful job of integration. And again, you can always tell when something's been done by people who really love the material. It seems to go that extra step. I mean, it was great to meet David Tennant as well, because he's such a ball of energy, such a fantastic actor as well. And I actually learned something that I already knew, but I thought, because he was having a chat with me, and it was quite interesting to see David Tennant in kind of fanboy mode towards me and Pat, because obviously, we'd been there when he was a kid. And he said to me, now, I was going to do a Scots accent, I won't. He said, now, which Doctor did you do? I said, it was the fourth one. It was Tom Baker. He said, "Oh, right, right." I said he was quite easy to get a likeness of. Unlike the next Doctor, who was Peter Davison, it was a bit like trying to draw a blancmange. And he said, "You do realise that Peter Davison is my father-in-law, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, well, he's a good-looking guy. He's just not got many distinguishing features." And in fact, he was really kind to us at the time because I was struggling to get a likeness of Peter Davison. And he was kind enough during a break in filming, when they were in London filming it, to let me and a photographer go along to the set and take loads of reference photos, you know, of him smiling and shouting and cringing and looking amazed, and, you know, shots all around his head. So I always had a shot that I could use as a reference. So he may have looked like a blancmange, but he was a very helpful and very, very friendly blancmange.
Brilliant, brilliant. How funny that over time you've ended up meeting both of them.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Yeah, and I mean, I actually did meet Tom Baker as well. And I showed him that I'd drawn all these pages of him, and he had no idea at all who I was. I don't think he even knew there was a comic being published, but it was a great thrill to meet him as well. And he was just the way you imagine he would be. And he was a typical actor because he was in the green room and he was a bit low energy and a bit kind of, you know, hanging around. And he walked out on stage and just lit up. Yeah. It was fantastic. Hello, hello. Yeah, it was. I also met Sylvester McCoy at a convention in Australia. I had a drink with him at the bar. He was a really entertaining guy. So one way and another, I've met a fair proportion of them.
I would imagine Sylvester McCoy is a really interesting bloke, actually, when you get to meet him one-on-one.
Yeah, he's a sort of not your everyday person. He's very whimsical and very actorly and very amusing as well, very friendly, you know, but a really quirky guy. But and it's, of course, it's weird because my Doctor was actually William Hartnell, because I'm old enough that I watched the first episode on the BBC on a grainy black and white TV on a winter's afternoon. But my son, it was actually Sylvester McCoy when he was growing up. So he had a great feeling for him as well. And I believe I actually got him Sylvester McCoy's autograph as well. So
wonderful. Yeah, I mean that's an extraordinary hit rate for actors who have starred as the Doctor, in terms of that. I think that's a brilliant thing about one of the many great side effects of your job and your career and your success is it gives you these access points that you're able to meet these people and interact with them.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's as essentially a fan myself, that always has been one of the perks of the job. I mean, I met I don't know if I've told you this before, but anyway, it's Christmas. Throw another log on the fire and I'll tell you another anecdote.
Right on, that's what I want.
I was at a convention in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and in the green room backstage, I was signing copies of Watchmen, as I normally am in a green room at a comic convention. And Adam West was there, and Frank Gorshin, who played the Batman and the Riddler in the TV series. And Adam West said to me again in a very friendly way, he said, "Oh, Watchmen." I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Would make a great movie, but would make an even better TV series." And I said, "I think you're quite right there. And you know who'd be perfect to play a retired superhero, don't you?" And he kind of, yeah, I guess so, and changed the subject, because I think that even then he didn't like to think of himself as being retired.
Right, yeah, right on.
Still young Batman, but to see him turn up as someone like Night Owl in The Watchmen, you immediately would have made the connection. Oh, he used to be a corny old superhero back in the day. So, yeah, but these things, it's almost like people who, train spotters who sort of write down the names of engines that they've seen. I almost wish I kept a book saying, met David Carradine. That was one of the least inspiring experiences, but I won't get into that.
Yeah, I would love to hear that, if not now, then sometime, because I know that David Carradine could be very awkward and difficult as a person.
Yeah, he was. I mean, you don't like to speak ill of the dead, but he's the rudest person I've ever met in comics, and let's just leave it at that, shall we?
Okay.
But not in comics, in conventions, basically.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting and very well said. I mean, this it is kind of glorious, the fact that you got to interact with Adam West. That in itself for you must have been a brilliant thing.
Yeah, and because in my head it's Batman, nice Batman, I found him a really nice guy. Frank Gorshin seemed a nice guy as well, although I sort of suspected him because he played such a tricksy villain. I thought, I don't know if he's a good guy or not, but he actually was. So, but I just think it's amazing. I mean, they were quite well known in a very prominent TV series. But the thing I'm really amazed at these days at conventions, you know, it's like all you had to do was hold a ray gun in some episode of Buck Rogers or something, and you're made for life. You just travel the world going to comic conventions, you know.
Yeah, it's a full-time job. It's amazing. I mean, that's essentially Sam J. Jones's, you know, employment. It's his job, you know. It's being himself, you know, 50 times a year or whatever. Yeah, it shows all well done, and long may it continue. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, well, I think it's fantastic again for people who haven't been treated very well historically. The fact that they've got this really, and I mean, it's great if you're on that. You get to go to different cities. You know, generally the people you interact with are there because they want to see you, they want to talk to you, they've got some sort of love of what you've done, and I think it's just a great retirement plan, really.
Yeah, well said, Dave. I couldn't agree more. And now, with it being Christmas Day today, and something that that you and I have bonded over in the past is our love of classic Christmas comics and classic British Christmas comics with the snow effects on the logo.
Oh, on the logo, you got to have it. You got to have it.
Which is something our American cousins often miss. I saw in Forbidden Planet London this December a beautiful update of that concept, and it is the Christmas Prague of 2000 AD. Which I know that we both
I hope
have.
I've got one of I hope I've got one of those on the way. It's been lost in the Christmas rush, I guess, but it looks great. I love the logo.
It's great, and what I think is particularly clever about this is that they've used the laser beams of the raving monster robot version of Santa as cutting through the top of the logo. That's not actually a Christmas effect. It's the laser burning through the logo at the top. That's so
white
clever.
hot metal.
Yeah, such a clever thing to do. And that's like Cliff Robinson's beautiful artwork. I think that's a really clever update of the whole concept.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's great, and again, it's a great mingling of things, and I love the way it looks like snow on the logo, but it isn't snow on the logo; it's burning metal, you know, and also to have an evil Santa. I mean, obviously, you're not evil. I mean, you're a bit Santa-ish at the moment, but I was before we started recording this, I was looking for a picture I did of an evil Santa. It almost lends itself, you know, to sort of look at the other side. It was a cover for a games magazine called The One. And it's Father Christmas with a big cigar clenched in his teeth and a huge sort of grenade launcher automatic weapon. And it's one of my favourite drawings that I ever did. In fact, I haven't got a lot of my artwork, but that's one thing that I do have somewhere. Unfortunately, in a very, very safe place that I can't actually find it. But I always like a bad Santa. And, you know, 2000 AD's got a good history with giant robots rampaging around as well. So I think that's a very happy combination.
I think so too. I think that that Santa illustration of yours, the cigar chomping grenade launcher Santa, which has been beamed up while you've been talking about it on screen.
Oh, good.
It's a precursor in many ways to the kind of the darker Santa iterations we've had in the movies in recent years. Say like Mel Gibson in I don't know if you've ever seen this film, but I would recommend it. It's called Fat Man, where he plays a kind of, you know, rock hard version of Santa. And similarly, there was Violent Night, which came out last year, which has David Harbour as Santa, who looks very much like the version you drew on the One cover.
Oh, right. All inspired by me, obviously.
Well, of course, there could be no doubt. I'm more on Christmas movies in a second, but sticking with our comics theme. So what I've been impressed by this year is the cornucopia of new Christmas themed comics that have come out. So our pals here at Forbidden Planet, Piper and Rob Williams, currently having great success with a new image book, Petrol Head. And Petrol Head 2 has a special festive variant cover, which is Petrol Head himself, a car racing robot, stepping through the snow there. I think that's quite nice.
Plenty of snow. There's a healthy amount of Yuletide snow there. I like that. Absolutely
right. And Boom have just put out this special edition of Stuff of Nightmares, Sleigh Ride.
That is an evil Santa if ever I saw one.
Absolutely. And this is
Very
a particularly good collection of stories in this, which I would recommend. But the other guys who've gone all in are your old pals at DC, Dave. And they've done something really clever. They've put out a sequence of books, and here's an example of Poison Ivy and World's Finest. And they put them out with special card covers, which can be turned into Christmas cards.
So you fold them in half and you got a Christmas card.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Clever. And so there's the that's the World's Finest, and that's the Poison Ivy.
Yeah.
Really.
So what's the thing with the Venus flytraps? Because there's one of those all over some adverts on the TV over here. Is that a traditionally Christmas thing?
I don't think so. I think it can only be with regard to Poison Ivy. Just has to be, I think, one of her main offensive weapons are these large Venus flytraps that she controls. Yeah,
must be it.
I quite like the stuffed toy version of Harley that's on there as well.
Oh yeah,
as part of the gifts.
Oh yeah,
there she is. Yeah,
that's really nice. I love the color on that as well. It's an unusual choice. Looks really good.
And they're really, as I said, DC are really embracing Christmas this year. And props probably the best evocation of that is this new 4-part series, Batman Santa Claus Silent Knight, which has just come out, which is this. I have to. Sorry, Dave, carry on.
I was going to say, so it's Batman and Santa Claus in one adventure together.
Absolutely right. Also featuring a bit of Superman. Also featuring a starring role for Zatanna and for the Damian Wayne iteration of Robin. And in fact, there's Santa and there's Damian Wayne in this.
That's a lovely tribute to Frank Miller's cover, isn't it?
Your pal Frank. It's really lovely, isn't it? It's really
so
lovely.
Good. Yeah, excellent.
And there's a bunch of variant covers for this. Here's another one because Zatanna's got a starring role in it. So there's Santa very happily with Zatanna on his lap.
Yeah, he's obviously been a very good boy. Although I doubt it.
And then back to David Harbour, they have this variant cover, which is a very David Harbour Violent Night-esque Santa. And this, Dave, is scratch and sniff. So if you scratch Santa's mouth, you get to find out what Santa's breath smells like. And as we were discussing before, I would have expected it to be brandy or bourbon maybe, but in fact, it's peppermint candy canes. It
should be cheap cigars and bourbon. That's what it should be.
Right on. And this book is by Parker and Bandini, and I have to say, I checked out the first issue before we spoke, and it's thoroughly recommended.
Right.
One of the basic conceits is that Santa is real. It's a fairly dark incarnation of Santa, big and muscular and dangerous, and Batman Bruce Wayne has always known that he's real. And in fact, did part of his training when he spent his 18 years roaming the world training to be Batman. He spent part of his training with Kris Kringle, and he knows him. And when
of course he does.
Of course, when he rocks up in Gotham, Damian's completely surprised by this, and ultimately Dick Grayson Nightwing turns up, and there's a lovely bit of dialogue. This is just in the first issue between the two of them, where Damian's going, did you know that A, Santa was real, and B, Bruce knows him? And Dick goes, well, he always told me those stories at Christmas time, but I just assumed they were friendly Christmas stories he was making up, to entertain me. Nice. It's a very nicely done book, And props to getting released once a week. It was released once a week throughout December. So props to DC for coming up with that one.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Christmas thing, with the distinctive colours and the graphic design of it all, I've always felt it's very close to the design and the art of comics and the use of colours and costumes and things like that. So it always seems to fit well. I was remembering that I actually wrote a Christmas story again several years ago, and it was about the Batcave, really, and Robin. It was about Batman being equated to one of the fearsome bats that hangs in the Batcave, and then a Robin coming in for shelter from the storm into the Batcave, and that echoing in Dick Grayson being taken in as an orphan of the storm by Bruce Wayne, and the way that they grow together and then the way that they grow apart. But had some wonderful artwork by an artist called Gray Morrow. So it was quite a, he's got an almost kind of documentary style of drawing, not a standard big muscle superhero kind of thing. And he did an amazing job on it. And it just seemed obvious to me, Christmas, Robin, of course, you know, but I didn't go as far as Christmas Batman, of course, but now you've said it, why not?
I've always particularly been a fan of that. I always loved Gray Morrow's artwork. He if I recall, he illustrated quite a bit of Zorro at one point, I think.
Yeah, he did, and he was at the kind of crossroads of pulps and comics. You know,
Yeah.
he did a lot of those genre artworks. A great science fiction artist, and his figures always had a sort of a grace and a nobility and a reality to them as well.
Exactly the word I was going to use. I think that's exactly right. And again, it must have been a treat to work with him.
Yeah, I was going to say, like we were talking about bumping into people in real life who you've loved since you were a kid. I didn't actually meet Gray Morrow, but it was a great thrill to be able to tick off, you know, work with Gray Morrow, one of the sort of Silver Age greats. So yeah, and it's a little story that it has been reprinted a couple of times, but it's one of those things that's a bit lost. It's only a tiny little fragment of something. And you know, when I go to signings, people always, of course, give me Watchmen, always give me Superman stuff and Martha Washington and stuff like that. But once in a while, somebody will bring that tattered old copy of Adventure Comics or whatever it was and say, "Look, Dave, I found this," and it's great. You know, it's one of my favorite things I ever did, but it's sort of lost amidst the mass of other stuff. But seek it out, viewers, seek it out. I hope you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, right on. Well said, mate. And do you have any plans for a Christmas movie this evening, Dave? Any favourites of yours?
Well, what we thought we might watch, because I haven't seen it, and there seems to be a general consensus amongst my family that that's what we want to watch, is Barbie. I chose to go and see Oppenheimer instead, so I've not actually seen Barbie, as a few others of us haven't. But even the ones that did see it said, "Oh, it's great! It's a great Christmas movie." So we'll be watching that later on. So I'll be feeling very pink. It'll be pink everywhere. But it's funny, there was a Christmas film, I suppose only a Christmas film, in that it was on at Christmas. And I've lost track of whether it was last year or the year before, but it was a movie called Don't Look Up, which was a kind of parody or metaphor for what's going on in the real world politically. Yeah. And the whole family sat and watched that entranced. It was such a powerful idea. And I actually didn't fall asleep, which is always a great recommendation, because these days I fall asleep anywhere. We went up to see a play in London last month, and I fell asleep in the play. I had to be nudged awake because I was snoring. So there should be some form of rating, which is a no snore, Dave, a no snore score from Dave. You know, depending how long I can stay awake. But I think probably I managed to stay awake during Barbie, but I'm looking forward to that because I've heard good things about it as being a good lightweight, but not completely lightweight, and a rather novel twist. I think it's great if you can make a movie out of old dolls. I think, you know, you've got to be really creative.
I think that's a great choice, Dave, and also Don't Look Up is a pretty bold move, something that could be taken as a fairly stark warning for mankind. To be watching that on Christmas Day last year, I think is a very bold choice, mate. You know, not safe at all.
It's hardly the stuff of is it?
No, that's
oh my God, don't look up, you know.
And Dave, have you got any favourites among the classic Christmas movies?
Well, it's funny, you know, I mean, I always come back to, and again, I think it's to do with things that you associate with Christmas when you were younger. And I mean, it's an obvious choice, but it's a thing that's been a staple of Christmas for as long as I can remember, which would be It's a Wonderful Life, because I think that just hits on so many things, and it's got that nostalgic and sort of slightly not sad, but that kind of emotional kind of, I don't know, no, and it's not quite spiritual, but it's sort of, it says something about human beings and about what Christmas is about and about what community is about, which is what we're supposed to be celebrating, I guess, at Christmas. And so that's the thing that even if I wouldn't actually sit down and think, "Oh, It's a Wonderful Life, it's on, we got to watch that at 3:00." Many times I've walked past the TV and it's been shown, and I've sat down for half an hour because I just want to reconnect with it. So yeah, that's something that I may well be watching this year. And of course, I mean, there's all the other movies that you associate with a British Christmas, particularly like the Steve McQueen one, The Great Escape.
Oh, The Great Escape, of course, yeah.
I mean, that's always been on TV. Of course, there's always a Bond film. Usually these days there's a superhero film, so there's films about Christmas, but there's films as well that you just associate with Christmas because they're made for the family and you've got memories of sitting there with your family watching them, which is a great thing, really, I think, because nowadays people go in different directions for their entertainment. And I think there's something nice about sitting down with your family and just having the same experience.
I really couldn't agree more. And I think The Great Escape, for me personally, is probably one of the top five in my top five films of all time, because it is supremely well made. I've had moments with that film being on where I've been doing something with my kids and we've been in the middle of something else, and then we just find ourselves getting sucked into it, and then suddenly you've put everything down and you're in the film. It's brilliantly played that way. There's about 25 really great leading performances in that movie. Everybody gets their moment to shine.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the way they used to make movies. I mean, you have to think of something like The Magnificent Seven as well,
exactly, right.
Or a lot of those Kelly's Heroes and all that kind of stuff. There are all these actors floating around who had great cameos, great characters, and had their moment in the films. And I've always been a sucker for films like that, and they're inviting. They're made to be inviting. They're made to be thrilling. The plots sometimes do dabble around a little bit, but they're always just good yarns. They're always just sort of, oh, wow, and then what happened? And then what happened? Which I think is a great thing about good stories.
I really couldn't agree more. And before I let you go, Dave, to enjoy your Christmas evening, if you will, there's a couple of things I should mention. One of which is viewers of this channel may have seen this already, but Dave and I did a panel at the Lakeside Comic Con right at the beginning of October. It's called Dave Gibbons Comics Vault, and it's Dave and myself talking about 5 of our favorite comics each. And there's been we've both received a great reaction to that. So there's a link if you've not seen it, check it out, because Dave comes up with some great choices during the course of that hour. That hour went past in about 5 minutes, by the way, Dave.
Oh, it did. No, it was brilliant. I mean, I quite often find that when I talk to you, because we're so much on the same page, and I just feel it's like having a pleasurable conversation rather than trying to fill an hour with stuff. It just automatically fills itself. So, and of course, what I was talking about, and I can't resist the plug, is we were talking about events inspired by my autobiography, which came out at the beginning of this year. We missed Christmas last year, but if you haven't got a copy of it yet, which I find hard to believe, but it's the ideal gift for the comic fan in your life, including you.
It really is. And if you're looking to spend your Christmas Day Forbidden Planet vouchers, what better way than to buy Confabulation, which you'll find attached to the links in the conversation here.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Right. Plug done. Carry on.
And then one final thing, a plug of another kind, which is something that Dave and I have been a part of for a number of years now, is my charity hard agree Christmas version of A Christmas Carol, which is live again this year for 2023. And that's myself and Dave and various other people of note, such as Evangeline Lilly and Michael Moorcock and Ollie Smith, all congregating to do a festive read-through of the publicly read version of Dickens' A Christmas Carol, the version he took on theatre tours and university tours around America. And we all read that. And this year, as it was last year, that's supporting the brilliant Comic Books for Kids charity that is run by Willow Mullane, who's the head of PR at Titan Comics, but a very good dude. And he set up the UK wing of this charity, which is essentially getting comic books into the hands of kids in long-term hospital care. It's all for a great cause. And you can find that. You can find the links to the production here on the links below, and you can find the means of donating to that great charity also.
Yeah, again, it's a great combination because it's Christmas. It's a Christmas carol which just oozes the spirit of Christmas, and it's a great charity to get comic books into children's hands to give them a bit of entertainment and a bit of a distraction. And I think it's a great charity. And although I'm no Charles Dickens, I'm very pleased that I've got a speaking part in it. Very proud.
And Dave, you've actually got 2 speaking parts because those who are curious, you'll find it at the link. But Dave plays both Jacob Marley and the Ghost of Christmas Present.
The versatility of the man, the versatility.
Is there no end to it?
No, I'm sorry, but there isn't.
There we go. And on that note, I'm sure you'll be back here in the new year, Dave, and we've got more conversations to come. There'll probably be another edition of Dave Gibbons' Comics Vault somewhere at some show around the country at some point.
I look forward to it, Andrew, and I look forward also to getting around to our Christmas dinner, which we didn't have together this year, but hopefully we'll have a New Year's dinner before long.
I'm very much looking forward to that, mate. A very Merry Christmas to you, Dave.
Same to you, Andrew. Best of luck with all your endeavours, and I'll see you soon.
Right on. Merry Christmas and take care of yourself.
Merry Christmas.
All the very best.
Merry
and
Christmas,
a Happy New Year, mate.
And a Happy New Year too.
Right on.
Cheers, Andrew.